check. Yes, doctor. Right.
Check, 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 check.
Good evening once again. While we begin the event in a few minutes, may I please request all seat, have the press bites take the event. While most up another parallelly are unable to find a seat ice cream.
Okay. 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 Holistic. Hello. Holistic. Okay. Hello. Okay.
May I request everyone to please be seated in case you're not able to find a seat. May I request you to go over to the AV room. AV room has plenty of seating and we have a live screening of the event over there as well. We will begin, but I would really need your cooperation in uh, settling down. While everyone settles down, can I hear it from all of you? A loud cheer for the spectacular evening that we have today. Once more, guys, this one goes on the gram. Now, that's the spirit of my city, our Bangalore. Guys, welcome all of you. I'm Natasha Doshi, the marketing head at Sapna. Thank you so much for gracing us today. And we're really excited to kickstart today's event. I would really need your support and cooperation. Please maintain silence. There's limited capacity in the auditorium. So if I can request all of you to be seated, please. And in case you don't have a seat, I would request you to move over to the AV room. The AV room has plenty of seating. While we settle down, signed copies of the book are available. We are very privileged today to have signed copies of the book by all the three superstars present today, Mr. and Mrs. Murthy and Chitra ma'am. So please do grab a book at the end of this. This is for the treasure, actually. I request the media to please be seated. Everyone from the media and the press, if you can settle down, arrange your cameras accordingly. Please give us some room. Everyone at the back, if you can please grab a seat. There are a couple of empty seats at the back. In case there's no space here, please move over to the AV room. Sir, I request the media to please, if you cameras and align everything in order. We'll begin the event in a couple of minutes. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. I can hear a louder cheer, right? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, Bangalore can definitely do better. We have a room full of stars today, and let's make some louder noise and warm up the evening. Good evening, everyone. Now that's the spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, dignitaries, guests, friends, and family, thank you so much for being here today as we begin a very, very, very special evening. We're all gathered here for something that we've been anticipating for the longest time, for the book launch of An Uncommon Love. This is a treasure trove of stories, collection of memories from the Murthy's personal life, and it's written by none other than Chitra Divakaruni. Let's give it up for all of them. May I welcome everyone on stage. I also take this chance to welcome all the dignitaries present here, members of the press. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Miss Akshita and Rohan Murthy, thank you for being here today. It's a very special evening that the four Murthys are here together for a very personal event. Thank you, St. Joseph's College, Father, and the entire team for lending us this beautiful venue. And thanks to all of you, our dear, dear, dear friends and family, for coming from far and beyond for this momentous occasion. I also have someone very special, Mr. Rahul Jacob from the Mint. He's going to be in conversation with the Murthys today. And let's begin. May I call Mr. Narayana Murthy on stage? Mrs. Sudha Murthy. Mrs. Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. And Mr. Rahul Jacob. Let's give a huge round of applause for today's guests on stage. And it's a remarkable moment as we not only celebrate the book, but the wedding anniversary of the Murthys. They complete 40 years today. So today is not only a testament to their journey, but also their love story. And it's a very, very special day indeed. Rahul, over to you.
You. Good evening. It's a great privilege to be here. It's a wonderful book about two wonderful people and written rather brilliantly by Chitra. I'm not sure where I figure in this because every time I've moderated an event involving the Murthys, there's some fiasco or the other. So about 10 years ago, I was doing a session with Mr. Murthy at the Jaipur Lit Fest, which is even more crowded than this room is today. There were actually 6,000 people on the lawn. But before that happened, the other main speaker canceled at about 3 hours' notice. So while I was tearing my hair out, tearing what little hair I had, tearing my hair out, tearing the notes I had up, and having to change, Mr. Moody said he would be there. So I was really get to the lawn, and literally it was so crowded that I had to ask for security's help up onto this. So that was fiasco number one, but it went off very well. The 6,000 people on the lawn. And then when I did a book launch with Mrs. Murthy on Facebook Live, the first thing she announced was I had sent questions, but that she never read such questions. Like to be spontaneous, and she'd thrown them all away. So we had to start from ground zero. Anyway, today, hopefully, we'll do better. Without further ado, I want to ask both of you about your childhood. Similar, but really quite different. You had Mr. strict father, quite stern, thought, didn't praise. And on the other hand, you had an incredibly supportive father, wanted everything for his daughters possible. In fact, brings that out rather beautifully. But if not,
Well, before I go any further, must thank Isaka. This is their fault. Yes. All of you. We are both very great. Second, have extraordinary. Chiki chose Chitra. And as coincide would have been Palestinians, which is an extraordinary book because that brings turmoil, anger, sadness, apathy. Father and doesn't treat her as well treated Mr. Jumna, son. My son Rohan Chiki take up the task of skeleton facts and data and fill in flesh and blood and give it an attractive personality. I said, good. Therefore, I was very kind. And finally, of course, Rahul had a good friend. Now, of course, Rohan are very close. And Vicky managed to anchor this. Well, I came from lower middle. I think Dinesh's family very similar because both the fathers, high school, master, my case, 8 children, lower middle class. Father was strict disciplinarian. He was care about both, whatever little I had. Example, when I went, happened to the three. My got the third rank for this. At that time, was a great Nehruvian, believed socialism, believed in Nehru's vision, higher education, socialism, equity, and all. Night, I'd always sitting on the floor. There were big lectures by him, monologue by him, how the country, thanks to. I grew up Mofussil, Karnataka, one small town to another small town. And primary school, middle school, high school, even college. So basically, I would on the other hand, my mother was very generous woman, probably the most generous woman. She taught us importance of generosity, took us to Bailata, that is open air drama, based on Karna's story, and saw several of those, and therefore instilled in us the virtues of Dhanashuva Karna. Karna, magnificent giver. So, background.
Hello, good evening to everyone. Thank you, Chitra and Chiki, bringing this book out. It's actually, people said, oh, your book is coming. It's no, it's not my book. It's a Chiki and Chitra's book, Two Bengali Tigers. Your book. Thank you for that. Well, my father was a doctor, and we're 4 children. My mother was a school teacher who enjoyed our childhood because my father always believed women have more power, more understanding, and he encouraged us in everything, whatever we did. In those days, going to engineering was like a sin. 1968, I joined engineering. And I come from a small town known as Hubli. Everyone thought engineering is never meant for girls. It's meant for only boys. It's a men's domain. And in that, my father said, if you believe in that, you can go and I will support you. When I look back, whatever I am today, I think because of my parents and particularly my father who encouraged me. And apart from that, he has to listen a lot. I joined Telco 50 years back. My friend Vinay is here, he knows we joined together in 1974. This year it's 50th year of joining House of Tatas as a single lady, first lady, on the shop floor. This is also 50th year of meeting Narayana Murthy.
We'll come to that.
Yeah. And after 50 years, I went back to Telco, now called Tata Motors. There are 800 women, girls working, and I cried. They cried and I cried. They cried for a reason that, I walked the thorny road and they can come in now. I cried because I remembered my father. My father, people used to come in India, you would like to give free advice to everybody. That's always, everyone is fond of. If I were you in your position, you are not in that position, you should keep quiet. But no, if I were in your position, it's a very common thing. People will come and tell my father, Dr. Saab, you have 3 daughters. If I were in your position, I would not have sent my daughter to engineering college. Look at others too. Other girls, how will they marry? Who will marry your daughter who is an engineer? They never knew. Across Tungabhadra, there was Narayana Murthy.
Yeah, sure. um, the- Remarkable. As proof of this deep love and this partnership, I was given instructions by Mrs. Murthy, who's not shy about giving instructions, as I walked on stage. And she said, I talk a lot, so don't turn questions to me. Draw out Murthy a bit. So I'll try and do that if you give me a chance. Anyway, is that you also had remarkably common experiences before you met, after you met, even when you weren't together, which include, and we won't go into too much detail on the engineering college, but that was a truly traumatic experience because Chitra's going to read about that. You got into IIT and then had to turn it down because of financial reasons. And so I'm going to ask you to talk about how that must have been a huge blow. But there's also another extraordinary story, which we're going to save for a bit. They both, believe it or not, have been in trouble with the police. Now, I couldn't believe it, but in different countries around the world, they've been chased by the police, in your case, in prison. So, but just to
Well, it's a, hello. Yeah. Well, 18 aspirate two of us called for counsel. Then Madras, metallurgy. Seek out that education. Area was hit Paris. Yeah. From Paris to uh, Mysore, my hometown, journey of on about $450, about $4 a day. Yes, me, dollar and a half a day. As I reached for border town between what was then Yugoslavia, Serbia, and Bulgaria, I didn't have Yugoslavian money, Italian. Therefore, I was hungry and I got onto the train. And boy, I tried English, they couldn't. Try Russian, they seemed to hate it, refused to English. Finally, I spoke in French, and when I spoke, understood, I started pouring out all her, and the boy got upset. What the gendarme, these, and they took the girl away, incarcerated station door, hole in the corner toilet. They put water 70 and odd out. And finally they said something. I remember today. All India. That's why we are letting you go. Journey niche to Istanbul was in a freight train, was in the guards compartment. I was alone. I was chained inside the guards compartment, and they said they would release me. The freight train reached. I started. Communism. I said, if this society, which has embraced communism, if it to treat friends, then how will they treat enemies? Because one of the guards said when I was getting on to that guard's compartment, they said, you are from a friendly country called India, and therefore we are letting you. So therefore, some sense, start of my version. Of course, it was a slow process from being a confused leftist, determined, compassionate capitalist.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break to release the book, and then Chitra will read, and the backdrop to Chitra's reading is the effect of these two very different childhoods. But we're just going to take a short break to release the book.
I can request Miss Akshita and Mr. Rohan to come on stage to release the book. And if I can request the lovely grandchildren to please join them as well. Chiki Sarkar, founder of Juggernaut, and our beloved director Nijesh Shah, if you can join us on stage. Father, if you can join us, please, it'll be our honor. Thank you. We'll have a quick unveiling of the book along with a launch for the media. Mr. Rohan, you can join us as well. Let's give it up for the Murthy family along with Chitra ma'am. It's been a great book. Be sure to grab your copy and do let us know what you think about it as well.
ದಯಮಾಡಿ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೀತಿಯ ಚಪ್ಪಾಳೆ ಬರಲಿ ಕನ್ನಡಿಗರಲ್ವೇ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಚಪ್ಪಾಳೆಯಿಂದ ನಮ್ಮ ಕನ್ನಡಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಶಕ್ತಿ ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ವೇ, ಸಾಲದು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಜೋರು ಚಪ್ಪಾಳೆ. ಇದೊಂದು ಅದ್ಭುತವಾದ ಚಿತ್ರ, ಸೆರೆ ಹಿಡಿಯಬಹುದಾದಂಥ ಚಿತ್ರ. ನೋಡಿ, ಕನ್ನಡ ಬಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಎಷ್ಟು ಶಕ್ತಿ ಬಂತು. ಮಾಧ್ಯಮದ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರಲ್ಲಿ ದಯಮಾಡಿ ನನ್ನ ವಿನಂತಿ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸಹಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರೀತಿಗೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಸಪ್ನ ಆಭಾರಿಯಾಗಿದೆ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ಮೇಡಮ್. ನಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರೀತಿಯ ಕರೆಗೆ ಹೋಗೊಟ್ಟು ಈ ಒಂದು ಪುಸ್ತಕವನ್ನು ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಬಿಡುಗಡೆ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಸಪ್ನಾ ಬುಕ್ ಹೌಸ್ ತಮಗೆ ಆಭಾರಿಯಾಗಿದೆ, ಜಗರ್ನಾಟ್ ಕೂಡ ಆಭಾರಿಯಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಖುಷಿ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಜೈಪುರ್ ಲಿಸ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಲಿಟ್ ಫೆಸ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಬಿಡುಗಡೆ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಈಗ ಮಾಧ್ಯಮದ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರ ಒತ್ತಾಯದ ಮೇರೆಗೆ ಲೋಕಾರ್ಪಣೆಯಾಗಿದೆ. ದಯಮಾಡಿ ಈ ಪುಸ್ತಕವನ್ನು ಕೊಂಡು ಓದಿ.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'd take this opportunity to thank Juggernaut, everyone at Sapna Book House, and of course the dignitaries present here. We'll resume the questionnaire once again.
So Chitra is going to read, and it's essentially her rather beautiful illustration of the differences in childhoods and how they made them quite different people, but also people who were attracted to you.
Namaskara, Bengaluru. It is my pleasure and a deep honor to be on the stage with my subjects, my hero and my heroine. And I'm going to read to you a little bit from Sudhaji's first day of college as the only girl that engineering college had ever seen. On her first day of college, Sudha walked into the classroom and discovered that some of her classmates had purposely poured ink all over the first row bench assigned to her. In spite of her father's warnings, this deep level of hostility, she had never come across such unkindness in her entire life. Pressed her lips together, blinked away her tears, and wiped the bench clean with a piece of newspaper. Thought, things will get better once the male students be behaving professionally. After all, I'd been good at making friends, but her classmates refused to even acknowledge her, except to harass her. For the first 6 months, no one said a word directly to me, even during teamwork. I told Murthy. This is when they have just gotten to know each other. They're telling their life stories to each other. But the boys had plenty to say indirectly. These boys, they were too immature to be called men. In her classes, aimed paper airplanes at her back with messages scrawled on them, such as, "Women belong in the kitchen." They surreptitiously stuck flowers in her hair and taunted her, calling her Miss Flowerpot. Even the professors said things like, "Engineering is a man's domain. Girls are not intelligent." Past. A yearly ritual at the college had students leaving anonymous chits by the campus fish pond to be read out aloud in front of a college on the annual college day. Most of the comments that first year were targeted at Sudha. There were derogatory Kannada limericks aimed at her habit of wearing a white sari, translated, "Mother, mother, here is a sweet potato. Give me a black sari and send me to my husband's home because I'm always wearing a white sari." They also had songs adapted from popular Hindi movies of the time, such as "Sajan re jhoot mat bolo, Sudha ke paas jana hai." "Dear, please don't lie. I have to go to Sudha's house." Sudha was deeply upset by such crude and cruel behavior. Never in her life had she been a target like this, especially when she had done nothing to deserve it. But though she wept in her bed at night, college did not show any reaction to all this crass. And I just want to say that she focused all her energies on her studies and became the top students in the class. And finally, the boys all had to come to her to ask for help to
Yeah.
prepare them for their examination.
They got their comeuppance, so congratulations.
But one of the things that really struck me was Taji was very mature about it. I think I would have told them, forget it, get lost. But she helped everyone.
Um, a very sad, I felt personally quite sad reading, of course, but it's also uplifting. Somehow completely behind you. I want to fast forward to your courtship, which started unusually with Mrs. Murthy again, this kind of displaying a certain iconoclastic individual sense of freedom, I think, to actually invite yourself over to a friend's house to look at his flatmate's book collection. So will you talk about that and how that you'd heard about Mr. Murthy's book collection and decided you had to visit that library? But in those days and in those times, I think that must have taken a certain amount of courage in itself. So if you'll talk about
I was an avid reader. Reading is part of my life. And when I used to travel by telco bus, uh, a young management trainee by the name D.A. Prasanna, Prasanna has not come, his wife Rajani has come here. Prasanna has come here. Prasanna is the witness, I suppose. He was sitting next to me and he used to bring book every day. And I used to peep in, N.R. Narayana Murthy, Peshawar, N.R. Narayana Murthy, Istanbul, N.R. Narayana Murthy, Paris. And I felt, who is this N.R. Narayana Murthy, an international bus conductor? Because everywhere there's a place. And I asked Prasanna, who is this? Prasanna and I used to talk same language, mother tongue is Kannada. So it was easy for me to converse with him. And I said, and I remember the books also. Prasanna, the book was My Experiment with Truth, Discovery of India, East is East and West is West. 3 books I remember. So I asked him, who is this N.R. Narayan Murthy, who has this kind of books? Because I always respect readers who read serious books, not joke books. This is my nature. He said, oh, he's a friend of mine. He hitchhiked from Paris. Prasanna exaggerated a little more. Okay, from Paris he has come. Mr. Murthy, the avid reader. He has fantastic book collection. And, I felt it, my God. Apart from this, he has a Jerome K. Jerome. I like Jerome. Very few people like Jerome K. Jerome. Yeah, people who like Jerome K. Jerome, raise your hands. Maybe my generation, Jerome K. Jerome. So I said, I must read this book because in those days, there was no Kindle. And there is no library like this where you can have these kind of books. So Prasanna one day he said, so I said, what are other books he has? He said, why can't you come one day? I said, where is he staying? If it is staying in a room, I would not have gone. He said, he's staying with a family, Shashi Sharma, with his parents, and there's a room and he has taken it, the outside room, and I stay with Narayan Murthy. I said, let's go. I said, okay, the office I will come, and Shashi's parents will be there. He said, yes, of course they will be there. Because only boys, I don't want to go. And I went with Prasanna. I was thinking this, the person from Peshawar, Istanbul, Paris to Pune must be like a Rajesh Khanna kind, I was a young girl of 24 years. I thought, oh, someone like this. And when you knock the door, a college student opens the door, petite, spectacled, very serious and very young. I thought, who is this college student? I said, very Narayan Murthy. This is Narayan Murthy, he said. I got, my God, he looks so small in structure and he reads so much. Then I said, where are the books? He showed. And first time, I read many books, but I never read George Mikesh. I said, George Mikes. Murthy immediately corrected. No, he's not Mikes, he's Mikesh. First correction, always Murthy, the quality control man, always connecting there only. First time meeting a young girl, and even though she makes a mistake, any other about, I said, okay, let me tell her later. in Jayanagar.
Check, check. Check, check. Check, check.
It doesn't happen in Jayanagar. Rajgopal will agree with me. Anyway, so I was fascinated by the land of rising and Cabbages sent me how to be an alien, the whole series of George Mikesh. I said, I have not read this. Then he said, okay, immediately he told, I will lend you all these books to you. Maybe that was the hidden agenda so that I'll return the book and I'll come next time. I do not know. He has to answer. That's the way how I met Narayana Murthy. Funny thing is, after our marriage, we were in Vaishali restaurant. There's a small cafe. And one of my friends came and told me, it seems Sudha, you got married. I said, yes. Because our marriage was extremely simple. We didn't invite any people. We got married in 800 rupees. So many people said, you got married? I said, yes. And we never spent any money. So she came, where is your husband? And I said, I was about to answer. She said, why are you sitting with this college boy? I said, he's my husband. Oh, is he? How old? How young? Is he 10 years younger than you? I said, he's 4 years older than me. I look old. She said, why? I said, I laugh too much. That's the reason.
Um,
At least once established a tradition. Last stop where stopped her to fruit juice shop called Dakshi, Rabat Road, Deccan Jamkhana. I mean, our time in Pune was one of the best. Both were. I was not at all a serious person like I became once I started in all of that. Anyway, so we would go to this Dakshin, not Dakshin, Darshan.
Darshan. Darshan.
Sorry, Dakshin is the five-star restaurant serving
We-
South Indian meals here. Sorry.
We couldn't afford Murthy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I would order a queen size banana milk, and she would order a queen size orange juice. Both, of course, at her cost. She would pay the money. The little, I was quite a lot carefree for somewhat see. I would sing like Abhina Jao Chodkar,
They'll be Bharan.
Dil Abhi Bhara Nahi, all of those kinds of songs.
Mr. Murthy used to hire a bike, and he did not have money to pay.
Let
So
me complete it.
every year, every time I have to give for bike money also.
Let me
Mrs. Murthy, you're breaking your own rule. You set that rule.
Let me complete it. Then, most waiters in that restaurant were stupid. And they would say, don't give us anything, just call us one. Most even friendly, all of them. एक गाने वाले जोड़ी फिर आ गया. And one of them even said, अरे भाई आप हर वक्त एक बोल रहे हैं, अभी ना दिल भरा नहीं है, whatever. बहुत देर हो गया. You have been sitting here for almost 3 hours. Will you vacate the seat so that there could be other people also to use that? Then we would get off and we would walk all the way from Darshan, Deccan Jamkhana, to a tiny restaurant called Chungfa in Cantonment. There we would order Chinese fried rice and vegetable spring roll, 9 rupees, and we would sell it. And there also, I would say, or I would say, there have been all whatever some also अब खत्म होने वाला है ये आपका गाना. So for very carefree, very easy. And I was there, Tata administration, telco. Then we would spend as much time. Only problem is once in a while we'd go to movies. Was a curfew. Mahila ne wo where she is. So I method whereby Chowkidar would allow Sudha to go in. The trick was to lure away Chowkidar at 10 o'clock in the night. So what I told, I was really good those days. Pebble stones at the window of a room where she used to room called Surekha. And we throwing pebble stones, and Surekha would come and she would see, and then she would call the Chowkidar. The Chowkidar would go to her room and then she would sleep in. So this was a well-practiced methodology. Lots of fun. Pune was a wonderful, wonderful time. Totally carefree. We were, of course, hormones were kicking, and you know how it is. All of that.
I have to say, when I read this anecdote about you throwing stones at windows to get Mrs. Murthy back into the hostel, I nearly dropped the book. But the other big surprise is for somebody who I think is incredibly disciplined, incredibly regimented. You may have had the most shockingly inept prospective son-in-law meeting his future father-in-law meet I've ever heard of. It seems like you almost went in a self-destructive mood, but you tell us.
Well, one day Sudha said, parents are coming. Told them, probably size you up, therefore you. So I just want. So I read symbolizing communism, and I took a side, getting the cycle, all of that. Took a little bit of time. Father was controlled his temper, good man. What do you want to do in life? Orphanage. Do you have any profession that you've thought about? I said, no, I want to join politics. Oh, okay. To start an orphanage. You want to be in politics. This whole, is there any for earning good for your family? Was also in this act. Said, no, don't worry, I will work and I will get all the money needed. Poor man. Completely dismissed with both of us.
How did you make up? That's the part I didn't get from. How did you make up after that? Was that Mrs. Murthy being persuasive?
Did I make up with my future father-in-law?
Yeah.
I think he came from family, respected scholarship, respected, which respected at an eclectic taste, philosophy, economics. Of course, he was always ahead of me. And I asked him, had my homework. Those days, there was nothing. I had gone to public library, books on gynecology. To impress him, I asked him a few questions. He also spoke about oncology. What was out of the way. So he was Ulga acha hai. Whatever it is. The boy is okay. The boy is not bad. I think over a period of fact that Sunanda, her sister, brother Sri, her, and of course, most important, mother, they all towards me. I don't know why they did that. Kindness. Finally, consented.
Wonderful story. Chitra, can I ask you at this juncture, are there parts of the book that you feel reveal something about both of them that you hadn't read before, that they told you? Send it back.
Yes, there were many such things. I really, as I sat with them and we discussed, we had conversations over days on end, little things began to come up, little stories. And one was the story of how, when we started this conversation, Murthy ji was also thrown into jail. Sudha ji was also almost thrown into jail. And I realized that they both had a very adventurous spirit. And I think that came out later when they decided to go on their great entrepreneurial adventure. So maybe I will read a little part about Sudhaji's adventures in the US when she decided to just travel across the US all on her own. Murthy was working. He could not take time off. Sudhaji was like, no problem, I'll do this on my own. Let me just find that portion.
Prepare to be shocked.
Inspired by Murthy's stories about hitchhiking through Europe, Sudha decided to backpack across the US for 3 months. And now she has gone to New York all by herself. And this is what she looks like. With her short hair and her customary t-shirt and jeans, Sudha blended in well with the Americans around her. Often, people thought she was Hispanic. In her large backpack, carried her money, her IDs, a camera, and often a tiffin box. Can you guess what's in it? Curd rice. In New York, she stayed with Murthy's cousin in Queens and particularly enjoyed visiting the museums. One evening, Sudha was caught in a terrible traffic jam that gridlocked most of the roads leading out of Manhattan. Finally, though Murthy's cousin had warned her not to do this, she was forced to take the subway. A train compartment was empty, except for 2 men who kept staring at her. Sudha grew increasingly uncomfortable. It was 8:30 p.m. Darkness had descended. She became very conscious of the $200 she had in her backpack. She was afraid the men were thinking of robbing her. She moved to the next compartment, but that too was empty. What was worse was that the men followed her there. Her heart thudded in her chest. Her hands began to sweat. Even though she did not know this part of town, she decided to get down at the next stop. Perhaps she could find an all-night diner, she thought, where she could wait until morning. But when she exited the train, clutching her backpack tightly to her chest, the men got off as well. She tried to run, but before she could get far, one of them caught up with her and grabbed her arm. "You need to come with us," he said, flashing his badge at her. They were undercover cops. And they march her to the railway police office. They question her, they open her bag, and they search it thoroughly. But the only unusual thing in there is a half-empty container of curd rice. And then they tell her she matched the description of an Italian drug dealer they had been looking for. Her nervousness on the train, her tight grip on her backpack, and her attempt to escape had made them certain she was carrying drugs. And they let her go, but they cautioned her very strictly. And then, yeah, then she tells Mr. Murthy about it, and he is very worried, and he says, "Don't ever do this again." Although he was very adventurous in his young age, once he fell in love, he didn't want her to have any dangerous escapades at all.
Moral of the story, don't clutch your bag too tight on the New York subway. And I'm going to turn a little bit serious or to serious matters because there is a kind of split personality to this book. And the carefreeness of the Pune days is contrasted with the rather difficult time you had setting up Infosys, but particularly batting your head against the bureaucracy. And I'm reminded when I read of your repeated battles with bureaucracy, including trying to get a license to get a computer, something as simple as a computer. I'm reminded of the economist Jagdish Bhaguti quoting another British economist saying, "The difference between your socialism and my socialism is I see myself behind the counter and you see yourself in front of it." So tell us about that, because it gives also a sense of how much stress you were under. It affected your health, but in many senses, it affected you as a family man as well. You felt like you were an absent father and husband to some degree.
Well, when I decided to, I they were they were very good in program project. They all went off to the US with the computer, manage projects. So the entire responsibility of obtaining the license, getting the license modified later twice, then obtaining bank loan for porting the computer, obtaining the data center, large data client, getting telephone, getting an office, all those responsibilities. All youngsters are doing the job very. What that also meant was lots of action bureaucrat. For example, 10, 15 visits to Delhi, get a license for a company. By that time, in the US, they had announced a set of districts which were 1.5 times capacity of what was in the license, but which cost 1/3. Now, what that meant was I had to go again Delhi, get the approval. The joke in India those days was technology changes once every year, and the Indian bureaucrat all several relations and US. Fortunately, that second one, which was going to be useful, spend less money, get more, took 8 months. Third, we had to effect change from one place where we want all first to Bangalore. That was horrendous. So much about 2020. And it was thought that what thanks to Vikram Bhatt, who managing director of MICO or commercial director of MICO at that time, thanks to his extraordinary corporate leadership, made that happen. And I was alone. Of course, Mr. Raghavan was there with me. Kind of, the entire responsibility was with. Then the issue of getting loan for that was another big deal. Fortunately, Karnataka's Industrial Investment Development Corporation and KSFC, Karnataka Corporation, they need to make, they approved the loan week. I'm so proud of the Karnataka institution. And without officers, KSN Murthy, late Rudradev, Immerse Chandra, Mr. Terry and others, without those extraordinary, I don't think. Then getting a telephone connection was so, had a telephone, had a communication minister called Stephen, Kerala. The law openly said in the parliament that telephone is a luxury, not a fundamental right. And even the telephone doesn't work at Adam's house, Prime Minister. Why are all these fellows looking for telephone? And number two, had a rule that a retired government officer had a higher priority for telephone allotment compared to an entrepreneur who was going to bring foreign exchange. I mean, it was a lopsided business world. Bureaucracy primary function was to thwart every aspect of progress. I mean, they had learned from the past, who, when they were ruling, they very legitimately had a very correct principle. One, keep the natives under control, and second, make sure that taxes are collected. Very few British officers, and they did a brilliant job, excellent. But there was no need for our bureaucrats to continue this even after independence. But that continued between 1947 and 1991 when late Sri Bharatratna Narasimha Rao and and Sri Manmohan Singh, Sri Montek Singh Ahluwalia and Sri P. Chidambaram ushered in economic reform. And without that, I don't think we could have all the wonderful things that we are experiencing.
Can I just quickly ask you to add to that with a very quick answer, because we're slightly running, and I want Mrs. Murthy to weigh in. How much of a stress did that bring to your family life? That was, because this is at some level extracurricular. Most startup entrepreneurs don't expect to have to go to Delhi 20 times to get a computer license. It took a lot of time out of your family life.
It's very important to remember those who afford air travel. So I had to buy third class train, number one. Number two, guest hotels near Old Delhi railway station called Natraj. But that's all what I could afford. Then so much uncertainty. You could go and wait in corridors for hours, and the officer may see. But those things, And whatever quality, take them to McFast here nearby for pizza and all of that, which Akshata and Rohan loved it. And said, what is most important? Quality. Therefore, I would come home by 9 o'clock, 9:30, McFast. They would eat. Joy to them eat. I think a supporting, a adoring children, somewhere understand they reduce belief. What I entrepreneurs have to keep. It is the family that ensure that you manage.
The one person who doesn't come out of the book too well is Rohan, who's one of the most intelligent people I know. And sometimes annoyingly so, you go over to have breakfast with him, and the entire conversation is taken up by him trying to show me that ChatGPT can write better articles than I can. And however arrogant that sounds, we're not there yet. But in this book, you get revelations such as Rohan throwing himself off a cupboard, a car, trying to prove he's Superman. So he managed to dislocate his shoulder not once, but twice. More seriously, though, there's a lovely story which I'll ask Mrs. Murthy to talk about involving Akshata and the idea for the Infosys Foundation.
Akshata was in Baldwin School and she was selected to act the part of Cinderella. So she came back and told me, Amma, they have selected me and I will be Cinderella, but I require a white dress. Cinderella comes in a princess white dress. I told Akshata, we cannot afford. I never lied to my children. I never lied. They are my friends. Why lie? For anybody, I don't lie, but never with children. I said, Appa, Akshata, in Appa's salary, we cannot afford. Then what will I do? I said, okay, tell teacher, we can't do that. I can't get that dress. So whatever dress she has, which one I call the best one, corresponding part, you take it. It was hard on my part to tell, but I never believed in taking loan and making the dress. That's what I instilled in them, that you should not cross your limit. Later I felt bad, but that is the reality I have to face. So Akshata never became a Cinderella in her school at all. Okay, she became maybe one of the assistant of the Cinderella who gives her shoes or whatever is that. Coming to Rohan, I used to tell Rohan, listen, I had a lot more conversation with Rohan because Akshata was a quieter girl. Once I gave him 100 rupees to get postcards from the post. And he came back, 10 rupees I gave. Today nobody knows about postcard. He went and came back and that fellow gave 90 rupees change. Rohan said, I got 90. I said, no. 10 rupees is your money, you can't get 90. That bonus, you won't get it. It's the postmaster's money. He said, but you should have counted. I said, yes, he's a human, he has forgotten. Go and return that money, then you'll get your dinner. Okay? That's the lesson I told, which is not yours. Let it be marks. Let it be anything which is not yours. You should never take it. Never take it. And though it's running out of time, I want to tell this one to mothers here. Later he was in his college, Cornell, and one day he said, I did my exam very well, but I'm expecting a B grade because I forgot to substitute X is equal to 5. I did it 50 or something. So I will get wrong results, so I may get B. I said, it doesn't matter. I used to tell, merit is necessary, but not sufficient. To be a compassionate human being is sufficient than intelligent. I always believed it. To be a good human being is very, very important in life. So next day he said, I got A. I said, how come? He said, I got B. I got A. I went to the teacher and told him, sir, you have made a mistake. It answer is different and my answer is different. So by mistake, you have given me A. He said, no, I've given you the right marks because the methodology was right. Substitution was wrong. So I didn't give you A plus, but I gave A. Then I remembered when I sent him back to the post office, the result of that you can see after 15 years, which is not yours, is not yours. There are many adventures, Rohan has done. One of them is, I got him a Superman dress and he wore it and he thought a Superman jumped from the balcony. Even today, I lock the balcony. Even Rohan has a son now, but I still lock the balcony because I'm so scared. No day, even particularly if Rohan comes, I have to doubly lock. And then he dislocated his arm and I told him when Appa calls, Murthy will call once in a while because every minute was 100 rupees. Every 3 minutes was 100 rupees, we can't afford that. So 32 rupees per minute and 100 rupees, something that we knew by heart. I'm a Kulkarni, So all the Hishob is correct. So I told Appa calls once in a while and we should always tell good things to him because he's away from us in US, Washington, cold weather, all alone. Never tell anything negative about that. He said, fine. And don't talk about your dislocation of the arm. When Murthy called, fortunately, he took the phone and said, Appa, Amma has told not to talk about dislocation. But otherwise, everything is fine. I always consider that I was fortunate to have children who could understand our economic difficulties and our difficulties of establishing a company. Understanding and not demanding too much with the peer pressure in the school. There were in such schools, Bishop Cotton and Baldwin girls. There may be many prayer pressures, but they were very understanding with our status, what we have at home. Later, when we got money, Akshata told me once, Amma, you never give us pocket money. I told you don't require it. Give me the list, I will come with you and I will buy. So one day she told me, Amma, what's your duty? When I denied, she told me, Amma, you should sponsor a child who got admission, blind child in St. Stephen's College. I was very busy at the head of the Department of Computer Science. So I told her, no, you can do. He said, I don't even have 10 rupees in my account. The press writes, you people write so much, share it, multiply by so much money. In real life, they don't even have 10 rupees in their hand. So how can I sponsor? Then I told her, I'm very busy. She said, Amma, you are 45 now. What's your aim in life? Is it glamour, travel, knowledge? If you can't do any social work at this age, don't expect anyone to do. And you don't have any moral right to tell anybody. And that shook me for 1 week. And then I resigned my post. I started foundation. I'm ever grateful to Akshata, not because she's my daughter. Not because she's my daughter, because I was sleeping. She woke me up. She woke me up and told me what is my duty. And because of her, I started Infosys Foundation. Infosys Foundation taught me what my country wants. Sorry, Murthy, not software, not Bollywood. 3 times meal, 3 sets of dress, and up to 12th education in 2 languages. 1 in English, 1 mother tongue or whatever they want. And skill-based education. Whatever I have been, last 25 years I worked for foundation. I think in our family, youngsters teach elders. I taught my grandmother how to read. My daughter taught me how to do philanthropy and start a foundation. Thank you.
Yeah, so before you do a last passage of reading, I'm going to ask Chitra, this is a very unusual biography in the sense that it's a memoir as much as a biography. Essentially spoke to both Murthy's extended family, and then you wove it together. Now, being a novelist, do you have a preference for the form? Obviously, I'm guessing it's being a novelist first.
Yes, I love fiction. I love being able to imagine things. But I felt really good about this book because the Murthys gave me the basic skeleton. But then I would ask them questions, and they gave me enough little details so I could really create a story. And I'm going to end with a passage which relates very much to what Sudhaji just said. and where this is the very end of the book, and this is an imagined moment, but it's really based on what they have told me. So I'm imagining at this moment that it's nighttime, they're lying side by side, and they have made these decisions. Infosys is now at a certain level and needs to grow, and Murthy ji is imagining the Mysore campus, which will become such an amazing and beautiful reality later. And Sudha ji, having talked to Akshata, having quit her position, is imagining what she's going to do with Infosys. And she's thinking, what should my first project be? And she decides she's going to work with prostitutes, she's going to work with Devadasis. The practice of Devadasis had become corrupted over time. Okay, so I'm imagining they're lying in bed next to each other, and each one is thinking about what they're going to do. And this is what Sudhaji is thinking. The practice had become corrupted over time, and now Devdasis were no longer respected. They were often given away as girls to temples by parents who were too poor to afford their marriage dowry. Without anyone to protect them, these women were forced to become sex workers, at which point society shunned them. Corrupt temple administrators often made use of this situation, exploiting the women however they wanted. Many times, the daughter of a Devdasi received no education. Thus, she had no recourse other than following in her mother's footsteps. The women Sudha had seen in Belgaum, dressed in garish saris and cheap bangles, their faces harsh and defeated under turmeric smears, were clearly victims of the system. I found the perfect project, Sudha thought. She pictured herself walking up confidently to these women, finding out about their issues and solving them efficiently in the same way that she solved complex mathematical equations. She had no idea of the severe challenges she would have to face before she learned that one can only truly help people by respecting them, understanding them, listening humbly to them, and allowing them to take the lead in reclaiming their lives. Nor did she know that before she could move forward, she would have to give up her way of life. She would have laughed in disbelief if someone had told her that soon she would exchange her everyday wear of jeans and t-shirts for cotton saris, pin flowers to her hair, and don a Mangal Sutra so that the people she wanted to help would feel at home with her. She especially had no idea that when she started on her project, she would be insulted and pelted with sandals. Blissfully ignorant of the difficulties that lay ahead, Sudha moved closer to her husband, who was fast asleep by now. She laid her head on his arm and breathed in his dear, familiar smell. They had been companions on life's journey for 20 years now, enjoying its beautiful vistas and weathering its fierce storms. How amazing was that? Just before she gave in to the current of sleep sweeping over her, a quotation swirled up through the dark, lines from Tagore that she had forgotten in the hustle and bustle of life. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. I must share it with Murthy and the children tomorrow, she thought as her eyes closed. The moon sailed slowly across the sky, pushing through clouds. A night bird cried out its lonely song. Sudha and Murthy lay side by side, dreaming their separate, unique dreams.
That's a uniquely novelistic treatment of biography, but rather beautiful for that. I think we have time for questions. Are there mics to pass around? Okay. So we'll follow a convention that Ms. Murthy insisted on in Jaipur several years ago, which is a woman asks the first question, not a man. I'd sort of left that.
Introduce yourself. I'm also slightly hard of don't hear you properly.
There's a
Don't
question.
mind.
She has a mic.
This was first. You actually. Question. Wonderful call often in. There's also of life. Prosody of the question. But any regret that
Well,
Thank you.
there are multiple. First of all, I have always been first rank every one of the 10 first rankers. She had got scholarship to PhD, world's number one in technology. First woman engineer. In other words, it was no less than me or any of them. Somehow, because I did family business not so good. In I could competitive always allowed me to some way one, but never looks at it as one thing with whatever grows to it. Education as an author, as a mother, matter always one who asks how. The second, there were little art early adopters whom I could not award kind of talks that their contribution was no less than mine, any of them. I only wish so benefit. A third, I having an enlightened democracy, emphasis was run, at least my time, as a place everybody was given opportunity to state their point. And finally, I would best idea. Problem with democracy as we in India, you don't always get the best result because you always regress to the mean station. Therefore, in some ways, probably emphasis could have done much better than what it did because we environment enlightened democracy. And finally, while my children extremely understand, put up unbelievable focus on in. I only wish I could have spent little more time of the quality that I tried to do. But I was very lucky. Wife completely managed it well. Son did a brilliant PhD, computer science from Harvard, best paper award. Daughter went to school. Both of them did very well by any standard. So therefore, these are some of that I do have, but I wouldn't say all highly impactful regret. Things that I could have done slightly better.
You want to add to that? The famous line of Princess Diana's was that when there were three entities in a marriage, it got a little bit crowded. You had Infosys as the third entity. So.
I'm not Diana, no.
Too sure.
And third entity there, it was different. Here it is my child. Infosys is my child. It's born between Akshata and Rohan. So I never envy. I always say, yes, my child is there, it's fine. No, I had an advantage compared to many people. I had an extended family of my parents. My parents at old age, they moved to Bengaluru. They stayed downstairs. And I want to acknowledge actually my sister, Dr. Suranda Kulkarni. She brought up both my children. She's the unsung heroine actually. She brought up both, she's the doctor, she brought up both kids. And that support was there for me, a safety net. And parents downstairs not interfering, but supporting. Without their help, it would have been a very difficult. In most difficult situation, also they said, so what? My father and both of us were alike, so what? This too shall pass kind, okay? It's okay kind. So that attitude helped me, and I don't have a regret. Of course, when I did not join Infosys, I felt bad for several days, probably a couple of years I felt it, maybe 2-3 years. But when later I realized that I would have retired as a technical director at Infosys if I would have joined. But God closed one window, but He opened the doors for me. I could touch common man's life by founding Infosys Foundation. So I don't have regrets. I have only 2 regrets. I grew up in an area where there was no water, so I did not learn swimming. I'm scared of water even today. Kids wanted to take advantage of me. They said, Amma, put you in swimming pool. Then I get scared and say yes. Second one, in my time, girls were not allowed to go for sports. No sports kind. So I did not learn sports and yoga when I was a kid. Only such regrets are there, which otherwise, whatever God has given, I try to do my level best. No regrets.
There is a third entity in the marriage today, and you've actually adjusted to him very well. Tell us about that. You were bitten by a dog as a child, I understand, and you've made room for Gopi.
Well, Gopi, our dog.
Golden retriever, by the way, a very handsome one.
It's a golden retriever. Probably after Ekagraha, of course, grandson was born, just completed months today, and Krishna Pushka, he is clearly darling. And I was extremely scared of dogs because when I was a student in Mysore, one day while I was walking in the night, I got bitten by a stray dog. And I came home, I told my mother, and then my father. And my father said, look, I don't have time. You have to go to the Krishraja hospital or whatever it is, Chaluvamba hospital, and get 14 injections plus 1 tetanus. Now there were 15. In those days, those needles were fairly thick. And he had to stand in a long queue. And let's say at the front of the queue, there's a small child, and that child is being given the injection. The child would cry, and then I would be 10th or 12th person. That was a traumatic experience. But so when Gopi came, it was what hesitated. But thanks my son and thanks to Sudha, of course, Gopi, generally dogs want only one master. And for Gopi, it's Sudha. Wherever Sudha goes, he always goes. Even today, he wanted to get into the car, and it was a very difficult thing not to bring him here because some people may not like dogs. And like, for example, Akshita has a dog called Nova, and that Nova is totally dedicated to Akshita. For example, Rohan has a dog called Hari, totally dedicated to Karna, etc. So now we just can't imagine without Gopi being in the midst of us and being so much of.
One more question.
Now a man.
Hello, I'm Radvi and I'm 11 years old and I've been reading your book.
No, you're violating. We said first a woman, and then a man, and then a woman. So
Okay, you're next though. You're 11. But a man quickly. Somebody has mic.
Excuse me. Yeah, check. Yeah, my name is Anjaneya, and I have a question for ma'am. So I've seen one of your speeches where you mentioned that behind every successful man, there's a hand of a woman. So I think that is something.
No, it's not behind every successful man. There's the woman next to him. They walk together,
Yes.
not behind. Okay, tell me the question.
So,
You have the answer.
so ma'am, I just want to know how did you develop that mindset of having, like you had a very selfless attitude. So I would like to understand the thought process behind that. What made you continue doing that for years on and having a very selfless attitude?
Maybe my upbringing, my grandfather was a school teacher. He was a Sanskrit scholar. So he used to use, taught Upanishad and all. None of them I understood when I was young. But later I could understand. Danam priyavak sahitam, shraddha hi danam, ashraddha hi nadanam. So about lot of dana he used to talk. And I have written 2-3 articles on him. It's one of my books. It's not that I'm selling my books here. They are sold otherwise also. Red rice granary. I was brought up in a house where the best is given to the people who come and beg. I know we used to have a rice. In those days, there's the second quality rice, first quality rice. We used to have, because we had our rice paddy fields. The first quality rice was given to the people who come and beg. And second quality was cooked in the night for children. So one day I asked why. My grandmother never went to school. She told me, when God comes in the form of a beggar, we should give the best. My grandmother's name was Krishna. She said the best should be given to the person who comes and begs. And if you fall sick, I will look after you. So you eat second quality. My grandfather was a scholar. So he said, Danam prevak sahitam shraddha danam ashraddha nadanam. You have to feel in your heart and give away. You have to give away with affection. You have to give away because that stabilizes you in life. It's too much money, it destabilizes you. Giving away in life stabilizes you as a human being. So my upbringing in my mother's parents' house, that is Krishna and Krishnaka we used to call her, and my grandfather, that was my upbringing. My father was an atheist. He said, my patients are my gods. I don't go to a church, masjid or temple. I go to my hospital. Maybe that kind of atmosphere I grew up where individual is not important, giving away is more important. And that helped me a lot because it stabilized me even in difficulties. It may be through walk or talk or through give to say good words. This is all I inherited probably from my grandparents. Nothing is inheritance except diseases, But this inheritance I got extra from my grandparents. Thank you.
I'd like to add something to this, which you told me when I was writing the book, which is that at an important moment, you said to Mr. Murthy, you be the trapeze artist and I will be your safety net. And I love that. And I think you've done that for both each other. And that is the best kind of giving. That is the best kind of giving because you're giving confidence. to the other person?
Behind every successful woman, there an understanding man.
That okay. I've been signaled that I have to wrap things up. I have to say, this was an absolute pleasure. Three wonderful storytellers with uh, really unusual stories to tell. Who would have known that the Murthys, who we know for many other reasons, have both been in trouble with the police, as I said, but also have such wonderful big hearts, great kind of sense of humor. And Chitra, your novelistic approach to this, in the best sense of this biography, just been a joy to read. Thank you very much. You've been great.
Yeah, 1 second, Rahul. There's the 11 years girl. I don't want to disappoint her. Even though the time is running up, better
Where
get
is
her.
she? I think she's at the back.
11 years girl who asked me question. Who is she?
Yes.
Please, please. It's okay. After all, they're children, you know. Yes, beta.
So I've read your books for many years and you've been a great inspiration for me.
Hmm.
And even I wanted to share my thoughts in the form of a book.
Hmm.
And can you tell me how you get your inspiration? Because even I'd like to write.
Depending upon what book I write. If I'm writing for adults, then if I do something with a foundation, poor people inspire me because I always feel I have a duty towards the less fortunate people. You know, I always feel that is one of the inspiration for me to work hard for the poor people, which foundation taught me. So that is my inspiration. When I write for children, I always feel that nowadays children miss their grandparents. Grandparents are very busy in seeing the serial many times and away from the city as well. So the best is to tell children some stories which they will learn, not giving a sermon, but same value system I can give in my book. And that's the reason I have started a new digital media, that is story time with Sudha Amma. Because anyway they see TV, anyway they see YouTube, then let us control it with a good quality of stories. So I have a story time with Sudha Amma giving the value-based children's stories. So it depends who are my inspiration, depending on which genre I'm writing. That's the thing. Thank you very much.
A very good question, by the way, and apologies. So thank you very much. I'm sure there's a book signing. And yeah.
Excuse me. So here's a question from a 6-year-old. So
Murthy, you're in charge now.
Who is 6-year-old? Let me see her first. Or her mother. Yes, beta, please.
Murthy, how did you become an author?
Yeah. Writing is my expression of my emotion, beta. So whether I'm sad or happy, scared or courageous, everything I want to express. And that's the reason I started writing. Thank you.
he is a great fan of your Gopi diaries.
All are fans. There is no air conditioner for me.
I'd like to call our director Nijesh on stage for a few words. But so much for having been here today, and thank you for your time.
Good evening to all of you present here. Been an incredible evening. I'll not take much time, but I just want to thank 4 incredible people, fabulous individuals, their respective fields, and no better person than Chitra to have brought in life to the life of the Murthys. It's been an outstanding book that you've written. I'm sure those of you who have your copies would be able to know more about the Murthys and their life. Secondly, we have Chiki Sarkar, the publisher of Juggernaut, who's brought in various books and has been the inspiration to the book that Chitra has written. So thank you, Chiki, for bringing out this book for all of us here today. We have 2 special guests with us. In fact, 3, Akshata and Rohan Murthy, who've been the guiding light to the Murthys all their life. We also have Ms. Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, who's been kind enough to grace this occasion. So thank you, ma'am. To the wonderful College of St. Joseph's College of Commerce, who's been my alumni too, and father, along with his team, Dr. Purnima, and the volunteers of Joseph's, who've been absolutely on their toes from the last many days to make this event possible. So thank you so much, Dr. Purnima and Father, for giving a lot of your time and opening your hearts to this entire event. Finally, to all the members of Sapna Book House present here, it's been tiring, but at the same time, as we all have discussed, it's been a wonderful, wonderful few days bringing out this event, and all of us have enjoyed this wonderful evening. So thank you to the team at Sapna. And before I bid adieu to the evening, to the wonderful audience, thank you for joining us. And it's been an absolutely pleasure to have each one of you here. And we look forward to collaborating with such wonderful authors, publishers, as well as people like Mr. and Mrs. Murthys to come and give a talk about their life, inspire all of us, and make sure that all of you read more about them through the book. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been a wonderful evening. Namaste. Good night. I'm so sorry. I'll just take a minute to thank Rahul Jacob. Not many of you know, but he's been a columnist for Mint, and he's been a journalist. He's been writing, and he was a writer. He's a writer himself. Has conducted and moderated the event beautifully well. So, Rahul, thanks a lot.
And to all those of you who've come, a louder round of applause because you've been the life of today's evening. Thank you so much for traveling far and beyond and making this event such a massive success. Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am. So I'm representing the students from the college. I'm right in front of you. I'm here, front. Good evening, sir, ma'am. I'm Anushka. I'm representing all the students from St. Joseph's College of Commerce. So one last question. So we all wondered how different relationship would have been if it were not for it.
It would have been the same according to me. For me, it would have been the same. Because relationship doesn't depend on a company or something. How much you trust your partner, how much faith you have in him, and how much you care for him. For me, whether he would have been if he would have been a chairman, if it not have been a chairman, my relationship with Murthy is independent of his position. So for me, it is the same.
I think it's an important question. The reality is, when I met her, I had just returned from France. I had joined a non-profit think tank in Pune called Systems Research Institute. I voluntarily took half the salary. And at that time, I was clearly not Rajesh Khanna. I was clearly not wealthy. I scrounged quite a lot on her. So therefore, somebody, for whatever reason, chose me. My own personal feeling is, Infosys at that time was not born at all. In fact, my first attempt called Softronics failed miserably. And that's when she supported me. When I thought of Infosys, the first person that I spoke to was Sudha. She supported me. So Infosys was not at all an issue in our relationship, number one. Number two, if you notice, if you read the book, you will realize that it is purely focused on two individuals and, of course, their children. And Infosys comes in only where there is an absolute need. That's the beauty of what Chitra has done. It is focused purely on the two individuals. In fact, all other characters they just flit in and flit out. So the focus is only on two people, on their meeting together, their finding happiness in each other, their supporting each other, particularly Sudha supporting me, and going through this entire journey. So therefore, Infosys, as far as this book is concerned, while it does talk about several events which caused happiness or sadness to me, other than that, I don't think emphasis has any major role in our book and in our lives, and our relationship have been as strong as it has been today, even without emphasis.
Last but not the least, our beloved father would like to say a few words.
Okay. I'll be very short.
Father, I am from Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, your opponent camp.
I'm from Joseph.
It matters to me what father talks. I will tell my fathers they're in Christ.
At the outset, on behalf of all gathered here, I would like to wish both Sudha Murthy and Narayan Murthy congratulations on your 40th wedding anniversary.
46. Father, 46th.
46. And if I have to describe after listening to them last 1.5 hours, I could say they are a couple deeply human, firmly grounded. So it was a delight to have you with us and the four Murthys, entire four Murthys with us. It is a very rare occasion to have all the four Murthys together in one place. Thank you for being with us, and thank you all of you for joining us in this occasion of book launch. We were delighted when Sapna Book House approached us that for the venue and to have academic and literary collaboration with the Sapna Book House, and the event a big success because of the well-wishers, fans, and friends of Murthys. And thank you so much for being with us.
Don't have any book signing or photo sessions after the event. Thank you so much for being here today. Natasha Doshi signing off from Sapna.